Welcome to Life Lean In, a podcast that brings you biblical insight and tested tips on living your life to its fullest potential while leaning into the influence you've been given. And now, your host, Pastor Dan Smith.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 33 of Life Lean In. Today, we're going to talk about the church that I see. And here's the deal. I say this all the time. Nobody's perfect. We're all in process. Okay, so never stop growing, never stop learning, and keep leaning in. So here's the deal. Episode 33, the church that I see. There's a lot of voices out there, loud voices that you hear all the time about how bad the church is. Maybe people have church hurt is a word that gets thrown out a lot, or people talking about how wrong the church is, or man, its leadership is terrible. Whatever it is, you hear a lot of loud voices talking bad about or down to the church. And honestly, for some of these things, there's definitely a place and a space for honest conversations along those lines. However, today I want to tell you the church I see. And it's kind of a manifesto, if you will, because I see a church where relationships are formed in what we call life groups, that they can do life together. I see a church where, honestly, people, men and women, find their spouses, that they could find each other and get married. Not only that, but they build these strong relationships in church. I see a church where these great relationships are built, where people end up becoming bridesmaids or groomsmen. It's phenomenal. I see a church filled with people, man, who don't even have kids of their own, but they're committed to pour into and to love on kids that aren't even their own. They show up early to even set up an exciting kids experience, and it doesn't even benefit them at all. Man, I see a church filled with musicians and singers, production people practicing for hours every week, showing up earlier than anyone else to help others to worship, not for their own egos, but to serve Jesus and to draw others to him. Man, I see a church where people of all ages, especially, man, those in their 60s, 70s, and 80s, I love seeing this. They're showing up with their Bibles and notebooks, still leaning in, still learning, and still growing because they've seen Jesus in the local church. And their commitment to him is wrapped up in the gathering of God's people called the church. It's not about music preference for them or, man, how maybe a younger pastor dresses. Man, it's all about Jesus, and it's all about loving people. Man, I see a church filled with people continually passing on the baton of faith to the next generation. That the greatest legacy anyone can leave is a godly one. Man, I see a church that rallies to love and care and serve people in every crisis and in every hardship, through every sickness and, man, stuff that people deal with, maybe even grieving the loss of a loved one. Why? Because we are the hands and feet of Jesus. And Jesus said what we do for others is what we do for him. I see a church that doesn't have a kids' table, because the Bible says to not let anyone look down on you because you are young. Man, that young people can be believed in, and they can honestly even be an example to us. Man, I see a church filled with pastors and leaders who are carrying an immense amount of pressure and responsibility, and are trying to, honestly, the majority are trying to do it right with character, compassion, and firm spiritual leadership, only to be constantly judged and maybe even lumped together with other pastors who maybe have failed or majorly screwed up in some way. And you've lumped us all into that same category. Man, I see a church that is creative constantly creative in how we share the message of Christ. I see a church that is dynamic and diverse. We see it as normal that we're passionately in love with Jesus and passionate about serving people, not just in the walls of our church, but outside the walls of our church. I see a church filled with a heart to believe in people. Man, that people aren't defined by what they did or what they didn't do, but who they can become. And we can believe in them and provide opportunities for people to grow and to develop as people and as leaders. I see a church where people of all different backgrounds, ages, cultures, races, political parties, denominations, and passions come together as one because of Jesus. I see a church that is filled with imperfect people embracing that we are in process, that God himself believes in you and believes in me and is preparing us for what he's prepared for us, and that there's more for us. I see a church that is irrationally generous, both corporately and personally. I see a church that is alive. It's full of life. It's vibrant. It's real. It's raw. And dare I even say, it's fun. Man, where young kids and teenagers are dragging their parents to church because they've encountered God themselves. And it's for all people. This is the church I see. Yeah, it comes with struggles and pain and sometimes failure, but the church is family. What family doesn't have a few hiccups and a few road bumps along the way? But the church I see is beautiful, and there is a place for you in it. I hope you've enjoyed this episode 33 of Life Lean In, the church I see. I would love to hear your thoughts. I would love to hear your feedback. I'd love to hear about the church that you see, to hear the stories of what God is doing in your midst. Please share it. Share it with a friend if you think this is beneficial. Invite someone to church. Come and check out New Life Church, because this is the church I see. And don't forget, none of us is perfect. We're all in process, and it's a beautiful process. So never stop learning, never stop growing, and keep leaning in.